Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowigowen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Vertical Limit.
Woohoo! Get the popcorn ready. This is a very popcorn movie. This is not serious or cerebral or deep feelings or anything. This is just see it in the theater and enjoy, drama and tension on the big screen. And then after that, it's good, Saturday afternoon movie, which is where I have seen it most of the time. I feel like I saw it in the theater or pretty close to when it came out. And then every time I've seen it since is I'm flipping through the channels on Saturday. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll watch some of this, which is why I'd seen mostly from a third of the way through to the end several times, but I hadn't seen the beginning in a long time. But yeah. So this is a 2000 movie, sort of an outdoors action movie.
Environmental action.
Yeah. Directed by Martin Campbell, who I'd never heard of before. Apparently he's from New Zealand.
Oh, and you may have never heard of him, but you've heard of many of the films he's directed.
Have I? What has he directed?
Casino Royale.
Oh, okay.
GoldenEye.
Really? Okay. I apologize, Martin Campbell.
The Green Lantern, starring Ryan Reynolds.
Well, I don't apologize for that one.
He's a prolific. I don't want to say journeyman because I guess he isn't really, because he's made some bangers. Yeah. But yeah, he's just one of those guys who are like, hey, we need a solid director. Okay, great. Get me him.
Okay, well, that's interesting because that fits, I think, the theme with a lot of the character actors in this, which we will get to in a minute. The writers on this, there's two writers, which to me always makes me think, oh, what happened? Robert King and Terry Hayes, who I've never heard of, and you're going to tell me, they wrote blah, blah, blah.
I did not look them up.
Okay. When there are two writers, unless it's two that are known to be a pair. I'm always like, what happened? Did this get slashed halfway through and they rewrote it? But I don't know. But interestingly, it may have, because when we were talking about this, but when we sat down to watch it, you said it kind of reminded you of Cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
Which it does to me, too, because there's this very dramatic opening scene where, spoiler, somebody dies.
Somebody dies.
Apparently, it was planned to be a sequel to Cliffhanger.
Perfect.
So I don't know. Was it just, Sylvester Stallone decides to take up big mountain climbing and something else happens there? I don't know. I would like to see that cut of it too, just because it's so, it's a fun. I thought that one was similarly silly, fun action, and this is silly, fun action. But
yes.
So, before we get into the specifics of this, I want to explain why we're talking about this today. Because I would not until recently have thought of this as a movie that we should talk about here, because it's very not my type. I think you said once that all the movies I talk about have feelings, and this has very few. But so, this was something that I would turn to as, okay, I'll watch this for, 45 minutes. And I'd seen it several times. Well, there's a writer that I follow on Facebook. She's probably on Twitter too and everywhere else. Her name's Anne Helen Peterson, and she was a writer for BuzzFeed, and she's got a PhD in cultural studies, and she writes about this really interesting intersection between pop culture and modern life and millennial issues, and she does some really cool stuff. And she has a newsletter that I read. When did email newsletters become a thing again? I feel like those were big in 2002, and then they went away, and now they're back again.
I think the secret is they never left, but people stopped caring about them. Yeah.
Maybe. Well, it's kind of actually like podcasts. Podcasts were big right when the iPod came out, and then I didn't hear about them, and now they're back. Anyway, so I enjoy her writing, and she posted something on her Facebook feed the other day, or a couple weeks ago, and it was a retweet from somebody else, and it was basically, name the types of movies that you will watch no matter how bad they are, because that is the archetype for you. And people were saying things like, sweaty man owes money to other sweaty men. Bank heist goes awry, that kind of thing. And I realized that mine is, I have to do this very difficult physical feat to prove something about myself. And usually that physical feat is dance, or some artistic dance, gymnastics, skating, any of these things. But I realized, oh wait, no, mountain climbing, so that fits into this movie. I think fits into that trope a little bit. And thinking about that, I realized, okay, yeah, that we could talk about this because it very much fits all the structures that I like in movies, I think. But also it's just popcorn fun, so don't expect a lot of deep stuff.
No, there's not a lot of social commentary.
No, well, I mean,
not from the movie.
No, I think if you read some into it, then it's there, which I do often. So let's get to the plot synopsis. Where did it go? I had it. IMDb is often unreliable for plot synopses. Sometimes they're super short and sometimes super long, but this one is pretty decent. A high adrenaline tale of young climber Peter Garrett, who must launch a treacherous and extraordinary rescue effort up K2, the world's second highest peak, confronting both his own his own limitations and the awesome power of nature's uncontrollable elements. Peter risks his life to save his sister Annie and her summit team in a race against time. The team is trapped in an icy grave at 26,000 feet, a death zone above the vertical limit of endurance where the human body cannot survive for long. Every second counts as Peter enlists the help of a crew of fellow climbers, including eccentric, reclusive mountain man Montgomery Wick, to ascend the chilling might of the world's most feared peak to save her. And it said the end, it says save her. We haven't mentioned who her is for like 2 sentences. So her is Annie. So
yes.
I enjoy a good synopsis, and that gets most of it across. But there's a lot of drama in that synopsis right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if this was Cliffhanger 2, I feel like Wick is the Sylvester Stallone character from Cliffhanger 1.
Oh, interesting.
You know, he's on the mountain. He's climbing it for his personal demons and reluctantly decides to help.
So we dispense with Janine Turner. We're just sorry.
Well, I mean, she's the frozen in the.
Oh yeah, right.
She's the one that died.
Yeah. So let's go over our cast here. So Peter, the siblings are Peter and Annie. Peter is played by Chris O'Donnell, who in one of the reviews that I read described him as, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something like white bread wholesome, which yes, he is.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And then his sister Annie is played by Robin Tunney, best known for The Craft.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot else, but you know, she can't use her witchcraft to get up the mountain this time.
Not this time.
Montgomery Wick is played by Scott Glenn, who, God bless him, is such a chameleon.
Oh, yeah.
He can do anybody. For some reason, I had it in my head that he always plays guys like this, sort of gnarly mountain men types. But if you look what he's done, I mean, he's the FBI
director
person in Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. He was in, he played one of the astronauts in some astronaut movie, Neil Armstrong or some astronaut who's not a mountain man. And he's done a bunch of other things, and he blends into everything, which is fascinating.
He's like a weird combination of like a poor man's David Carradine when you need it, or a poor man's Sam Elliott when you need it. Yeah, like you need a gruff old man with leathery skin who's gonna, do either be wise or be, or
grumpy,
grouch,
or both. Well, yeah, I would say gruff is the thread through all of his characters. None of his characters would I want to piss off. I don't want to be on the bad side of any of them. But who is on his bad side is a billionaire Elliot Vaughn, played by Bill Paxton. Which Bill? Paxton. Why are you laughing?
No,
there's too many Bills.
Yes,
I get them all mixed up. This is Paxton. This is
not Pullman.
No. One of them should have changed. Like, just a different Bill P is not enough. Like, you need to,
Their last names are
2 syllables. Start with P.
In the roll call of the P section of the class, they are first and last.
But it's I'm just saying, they're both Bill P.
True. Yes.
I don't know. I suppose there are nuances to this. I was only ever Marian C. There was only one of me ever, so I don't know. But
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
but he plays this character that I think it must be kind of modeled on Richard Branson.
That's what it feels like.
But way more of a dick.
I mean, at the time, did we know if Richard Branson was or wasn't?
I don't know. I don't know if he is a dick, but he doesn't seem as much like it. But the common thread is has a lot of money and starts an airline.
Right. Yeah. He's some kind of tech millionaire.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oil, I think.
Oil. Yeah. Whatever.
And
has an airline.
And interestingly, from Texas and in the oil business. And since this is 2000, I was like, who is that referring to? Is this like a George Bush thing? I don't know. But not everything is a reference.
Probably
Sometimes it's just random. But he has brought this entire team to the base of K2 because he wants to climb K2, and he is something of an accomplished climber. I think this is not completely a vanity exercise, but he's starting this airline and he wants the team to summit K2 at a certain time so that the plane for their maiden voyage of the airline can go over and they can wave, which when you're dealing with Mother Nature, this is very, and this is a point made early on, like, you can't plan these things. Yeah. The mountain decides for you when you get to a certain point.
That's the driving sort of conflict of the movie.
Yes. And we know he's kind of a dick because he brags about being from Texas. And also he has this line later when they're having difficulties climbing up the mountain. He says, "You didn't expect her to pull up her skirt and pull down her panties for you." I'm like, oh.
Yeah, right.
Gross. And there is definitely a master's thesis in there about conquering the wilderness and conquering Mother Nature and conquering women as the same, and men who want to do one typically want to do the other.
Sure. Yes. Don't die on me. So vertical limit, K2. This movie is
I'm sorry. It's all the characters are coughing at the end of the movie, so it's in sympathy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll go with that.
So Annie is leading Vaughn's team up the mountain.
Annie Annie.
Well, she's not leading. She's
climber in the world or something.
Or is that is that a thing? Do climbers get on the cover of Sports Illustrated? I don't know.
She did.
I mean, good. Yay for female athletes on the cover of Sports Illustrated in lesser known sports, but that seems unlikely. But anyway, Peter and Annie are estranged. Because 3 years earlier,
the opening of the movie is like you were saying, it's
the cliffhanger,
cliffhanger-esque beginning.
I cannot talk today. I'm so sorry.
You're just gonna have to.
We're gonna push through, you guys. I'm sorry.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So the cliffhanger adjacent part is the two of them are climbing with their father, who's also a very good climber, who I think had done Everest at some point. Like this is not a weekend warrior type thing, and. Just after giving them a lecture on how they need more cams and ropes and various things in order to be safe while climbing, there's an accident, and they're all climbing this sheer rock face it's in the middle of the desert in Arizona or something like that, so super high. And there's amateurs who are climbing above them.
Yeah.
And they fall. And long story short, Peter's father is at the bottom of the rope, and they realize the rope won't hold three of them.
They're hanging from just Annie's anchor point.
Yes.
So it's Annie, Peter, and then Dad.
Yes. And she had used, umpteen cams or, whatever, and it was going to be solid enough to hold her, but not three of them. And their father says to Peter, who has a knife, "Cut me loose, because the rope won't hold three of us, but it'll hold two of you."
Yeah. And so he does.
He does. And Annie resents him for it.
Naturally.
And Peter, we're told, never climbs again and has become a photographer.
Yes.
And
for National
Geographic, which I feel like they were like, what would somebody do if they're a photographer to be at K2? National Geographic. Well, okay, that's it. That's
how do you get a character in Pakistan for no good reason?
Yeah, he was taking pictures of snow leopards.
Yes,
and then he just ends up there. So much of this movie, like, don't question it, just it will not be explained. It doesn't make sense, but just go with it because it's popcorn. Kind of just eat your popcorn and drink your 64-ounce soda in the theater and enjoy it. So Peter discovers that Annie is going to be doing this thing, and they have an awkward sibling conversation, and they're about to go, and then it turns out that the weather is not cooperating, like big time.
Yeah. So there's rich man Vaughn arrives, and there's a bunch of glad handing, and he's all ingratiating himself to this like permanent base camp that I guess just sits at the base of K2 or halfway up or whatever, and it's just like a party town where people come to just hang out and then climb the mountain or not.
I kind of want to know more about this because there are some people who white people who seem to live there all the time. And I'm like, how do you pay for this? What do you do? You just go and like we're gonna climb a little bit, and then a little bit, and then a little bit. I don't understand. Like, I kind of want a movie about not the people who come in for this big thing, but I want a movie about the people who live there all the time.
You want like a
what did Montgomery Wick do before this?
Right. You want like a sitcom that's a weekly half-hour sitcom that's set at the base camp.
No, I don't. No, because then it would be all about the douchebag Australian brothers, like, and that was
Cheers, but for climbing.
I guess a bar. I don't know. A bar at K2 would not do very well because I guess you get drunk really easily because of the altitude.
Probably.
So, but anyway. So essentially there's disaster on the mountain, and it's hard to tell how many people were in this group starting out, but only 3 of them survive, Annie and Vaughn, and then their other guy, Tom,
the supposed leader,
right,
of the expedition,
who is quickly talked out of doing the right thing, by the way.
Yeah, he immediately, like at the first sign of trouble, is like, nah,
we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
And
that's when Vaughn has the line about, did you expect? Yeah.
But so there is this whole confrontation. Wick confronts Vaughn at the base camp. What if the weather turns? Who's in charge? Who has the say up there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, definitely Tom here. Is in charge, but of course, as soon
as Tom tells Vaughn something he doesn't want to hear, then Vaughn turns into a jerk and is all kind of bullying, and he's a little bit manipulative, like, oh
totally,
it's gonna be fine, and then you'll be the guy who chickened out.
How's this gonna be for your business?
I wrote down on my notes, I wrote toxic masculinity, which unsurprisingly that I would see it in any of our movies, but I think he's an example of mountain climbing as a conquest. And he's talking about, conquering the mountain the way you would conquer a woman. And you feel like in his business life, he does the same thing. I imagine in his actual personal life, he does that.
Right.
So many of the other men in the movie they may be dicks, but they're not like that. Like Peter does not seem to be. Wick does not seem to be. Even the brothers, there's these Australian brothers who are, louts and like to get drunk. They have a still at their camp, and they make crude jokes and this and that, but they're very nurturing of each other, and they care about their climbing partners, we see. And there's a thing that I noticed this time that I hadn't noticed before. They're in a helicopter. They're getting up to this certain height, and they all have to get out of the copter, and it's a little bit of a rough jump, and one of them kisses the other before they get out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, they're immature man boys, but they're very sweet. I would not say their masculinity is toxic. I would say immature, but not toxic.
Yeah. And talking about actors, it took me a scene to realize one of the brothers is Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
Playing way against type, if you know any of his work, recently. He was the villain in Rogue One. He was the supposed villain in Captain Marvel until the turn and you found out he wasn't. And he was Ready Player One. He's the bad guy. Like, he's the bad guy in everything. Now he is the kind of thing, like, he's become the Danny Houston or the guy where like you see him and you go, oh, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
He's definitely the bad guy.
The only thing that I knew him from was there was the show on Netflix called Bloodline that I watched like one episode and never got back to it. And I would like to because Kyle Chandler of Early Edition is in it. But he's Ben Mendelsohn is the ne'er-do-well brother who shows up and then disrupts paradise. And so
of course he is.
Yeah. And I looked him up to see had I seen him in anything else. And I don't think I had, but the description is like known for playing sociopath. And I was like, well, yep,
yes,
that's
very, very much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
and the thing that tipped me off wasn't that looking at him. It was that thing that he has about the way that he speaks. He has a mechanical, I don't want to say it's a speech impediment, but there's something about how his mouth is built or his tongue is set in his mouth that he has it really does sound like he has a speech impediment and he's trained himself to compensate for it.
Oh, really?
But it's just I don't know, maybe I'm the only person who's ever noticed this. I'm sure I'm not.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's the thing that I always know when I see him. Like he could be in a mask with his voice changed and I could still pick up on that little slight tick when he speaks. That's just it sounds like someone who is hiding a lisp.
Oh,
like a mechanical lisp, like one that is caused because of the way that their teeth are set or their mouth is shaped. So that was what I was like, wait,
do what?
That's
hold on.
What is that? That's I know that sound.
Yeah. Well, there are several actors like that in this. So we talked about Scott Glenn, who's been in so many things. I looked him up, by the way. He has a detail that I really appreciate in a celebrity. Wikipedia knows his birthday, but not his birth year. Nice. So he's that much of a, like, just the facts. I just act and I go home and I'm normal. And like Wikipedia is like, we don't know how old he is, which I always appreciate when you're talking about, quote, celebrities. But also, so the Pakistani general, the guy who's drinking the tea and all that stuff, he's been in a ton of things. He played Nehru in the Gandhi biopic that was like 30 years ago, and he's been in tons and tons of things. He was just in this Behind Her Eyes show that I watched on Netflix. Like, he's been in everything. And then Kareem, another climber, is played by Alexander Siddig, who I knew more by name than anything, but
freaking Julian Bashir. Hello.
Is that what was... Okay. See, this is something you've seen him in that I haven't.
Dr. Julian Bashir?
I don't know.
Deep Space Nine.
Okay. I would not know that. Well, he was in this, also another Netflix series with Sacha Baron Cohen about an Israeli spy who was spying in Syria, I think. And Siddig is a member of the Syrian, not the government, but the higher ups. And he's the one who figures it out that Sacha Baron Cohen is a spy and leads to having him executed. And so you look at Alexander Siddig in this, he's very kind looking. He's got these light eyes and dark skin and hair, and he's kind of dreamy. And then in the other one, now granted this is like 20 years later, he's so evil looking. Like, he melts into this evil character and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So more chameleons.
You need to see him as in Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Dr. Bashir is like a Casanova. Like, he's always whining and dining different ladies.
I mean,
there's one lady in particular who he's always going after. Yeah. He's kind of a hound dog in that show.
And
he's clean shaven. So
yeah, that sounds pleasant to me. And who's the other one who you noticed I completely did not?
Freaking Jango Fett is in this movie. I don't know his name, but the guy who plays Jango Fett, and therefore every clone trooper in the Star Wars prequel trilogy, and also Boba Fett, because Boba Fett's a clone of Jango Fett. Yeah, so of course,
yeah.
So you've seen him in The Mandalorian recently, and that's where you would have seen him.
Yeah, when you said it, I was like, oh, yep, no, I get that now.
Playing Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, or Jango Fett in the original the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, so there are a lot of which is why I said when you talked about a journeyman director, there's a lot of journeyman character actors who are just when you recognize them, you're like, oh, okay, this is a mark of quality. I know I'm going to enjoy this. Well, I don't know about this, but I enjoyed it anyway, despite the movie itself.
Yeah, well, it's like they blew the whole budget on the setting or whatever. Oh, and I'm sure I'm sure Chris didn't come cheap at that time in the year 2000. That was like the peak of his sort of he was gonna be a big thing.
He was coming off a Circle of Friends, and he hadn't yet started, what is it, NCIS LA?
Right.
Or whatever.
Had he been Robin yet in Batman and Robin?
Oh, no, I don't know.
I think he
maybe I don't know. I can't keep track.
Maybe Batman Forever had been, I don't know.
Here's a fun thing about Chris O'Donnell that I learned. Yes. And it's just in his Wikipedia bio. Oh, sure. No context. He's afraid of heights.
Cool. Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Sure, of course. Why? Of course. Well, of course you would sign up for this.
Yeah. He is one of those actors that was going to be a big thing and then never was. Like he is what would have happened if George Clooney hadn't become George Clooney.
Yeah.
Like he had this flash and then maybe he had a thing. Did he something happened? He did something he shouldn't have done. I don't recall.
So. I don't think so. He's still he's been married for 20 plus years. He's got 5 kids. Like he's very normal. I think he's just and maybe that's it. Maybe he was like, I am too, because he is Catholic. Maybe he's like, I am too much of a family man. I'm not going to do XYZ.
Sure.
And that I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like his trajectory was like straight up, and then at some point it just plateaued off. And they were like, nope, never going to go higher than this.
Yeah.
Vertical limit. That's your vertical limit.
Yeah.
Now we're just going to even out from here on out, and then maybe go down a little.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, and he was in Circle of Friends, which was in 95, and I don't know what else.
He was Robin.
And then now he's with LL Cool J solving crimes,
hanging out, solving crimes.
I don't know what else he's been in, but
yeah. This movie's it is chock full of people. You're like, and even certain ones that I didn't know. I'm like, I know that guy, like Tom. Like I've seen that guy in a ton of stuff.
He's been in.
That actor.
I know there was something else that I saw him, and it took me a minute, a couple scenes, and I was like, wait, oh yes, and it was him, and I don't remember what it was, but it was something that I saw. He's, I think, Canadian, so there's a lot of his work I had not seen, but there was something that I had seen him in. So there's a lot of familiar faces in here, except for one. There is an actual climber in this movie who has this like side, like I don't know, half a dozen lines. But I think he's an example of what happens when you cast non-actors. Something about the way that they talk is just not the same as other actors.
Oh yeah.
His name's Ed something. And he's one of the, when Vaughn gets off the helicopter and meets his adoring fans, one of them is this guy, Ed something. And he, Ed, whatever, it is his actual name. It's Ed whatever as himself.
Right.
And his lines are just, what about the weather, Mr. Garrett? Like, it's not delivered right. I couldn't tell you what exactly.
Yeah.
But he sticks out like a sore thumb, and I'm sure if you're a climber, then it's fine because you're like, oh, it's this guy.
Yeah. And he looks extremely uncomfortable in the very odd scene where Vaughn first gets off the plane and is like, oh, but before we get down to who do I see here?
Yeah.
World-renowned climber, an actual real person.
Yeah.
Let me talk to him. We all owe you for all. You're great.
You're an example to us all.
He's not even nodding, or he's just sort of stiffly sitting there.
He's just like, say the line.
Receiving
say the line.
Yeah. And I think that is a thing too. At that point where you've not been an actor and you are literally just sitting there waiting for the other person to say their thing, and you're listening for your cue, and you're just so concentrated
on doing it. Yeah. One thing that I noticed when I looked this up, so after it becomes clear that these three are trapped up on the mountain, Peter wants to get a rescue mission together, and he's asking everybody who's at base camp to go with him, and most people are like, oh no, son,
no way.
No, I love myself, I am staying right here. And this Ed is like, that's a suicide mission. No. And Peter says, your best friend died on Everest. Wouldn't you have gone to save him if you could? That's actually really what happened in real life. Yeah. He summited Everest, and one of his close friend was on Everest too and was higher, and he died, which, depending on how you look at it, is either a neat touch or, oh my God, that's cold. Ooh,
yeah.
Like, Yeah, it's one of those things where like an actor is just going to be like, yeah, it's the storyline, whatever, and take it in stride, and a non-actor might have a moment of like, oh.
Yeah, totally. But, yeah, that's crazy.
But when it comes to involvement of actual climbers in this movie, so he was there to be in a couple scenes, but he actually trained some of the actors in various things. But before I saw this movie, I knew that it was a lot of schlock, because a guy that I worked with at the time was very into climbing, like not Everest level climbing, but U.S. American mountains. Yeah, climb. He had done some altitude stuff. Mm-hmm. And he said when he went to see it, he was sitting in the back of the theater and he was cackling the whole time at all the inaccuracies. One of which he mentioned was they're all drinking out of these clean canteen type bottles. Yeah. At an altitude where that would, and they're doing it with bare hands, I think. So the water would freeze and or your hands would freeze to the bottle. Yeah. And he's like, and he said people were turning around and shushing him. And he was just like, this is so ridiculous. You don't even know. So I think of that guy, Randy, whenever I watch this movie. Wherever you are, Randy, thanks for the laugh. And if you look on, IMDb is got like trivia and fun facts and goofs, and the goof section is huge. There's all these things like they wouldn't actually do that. They wouldn't actually do that.
This
they wouldn't
actually
do
work.
That.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And there's I mean, this movie is just full of like, there's a version of this script. Like let's say this is 100-page script. There's a version of this movie that's like 10 pages max. Mm-hmm. That is just like the intro. And then they go up on the mountain and the weather turns and they come back down. Yeah.
And they're all safe. The end.
Almost everything in this movie that causes any sort of conflict is their own doing.
Yes. Vaughn's own doing, let's say.
Not even like even the stuff that isn't like purposeful, like when the rescue mission starts. Yeah. One of the guys, he just stops on the mountainside, puts his pack down and takes a drink of water. His pack slips, he goes to grab it, and then he slides 1,000 feet down a mountain and hangs from an ice axe for like 20 minutes while his partner tries to save him. Yes. And it's just...
And they drop, oh God.
And it's like, there's nothing like, there is no instigation of that conflict. It is just like, well, we haven't had a scene where there was action in a little while, and we planted this whole seed of these
and we need to slowly canisters. So that's they're all carrying nitroglycerin canisters which leak
which they got from the Pakistani government.
There's this whole geopolitical layer in there, and if you don't know, then you're going to be confused, but as we say, just press on, don't worry about the facts. But it's in Kashmir, which is a disputed area.
Still, right?
Yeah, India and Pakistan both say it's mine. No, it's mine. No, it's mine. No, it's mine. And somehow in this universe, Pakistan is just blasting to annoy the Indians. Right, every like 12
gun
hours.
Emplacements, they just fire.
Yeah. So that's why they have the nitroglycerin.
Yeah, well, they have the nitroglycerin. They say in the movie, they say, "Oh, we used it to the construction guys used it to blow out the rock so we could mount the gun emplacements." And for some reason, they left like 5 canisters behind, which are completely faulty and leak, and also are dangerous when exposed to direct sunlight.
And there's a window in the shed where they are, that lets the sun in. Like this is, and there's some line where someone says, so-and-so makes the Pakistanis look organized. So this is not the best operation here. But I would think, let's do a little better than that.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
So the nitroglycerin is stupid.
It's hilarious.
But they are, and the nitroglycerin is conveniently the color of antifreeze, like this lime green. So when it leaks out, you can see it snaking through the snow. So
it's just hilarious. Like when they introduce the concept of the nitroglycerin, some of it is already leaked out, and it gets on one guy's shoe, or he's like standing in a puddle of it. Yeah, and Jango Fett's like, "Don't move." And then he slowly unties the guy's shoe in a scene that takes way too long.
Yes.
And then
backs out of there shoeless.
Throws his shoe out into the snow and immediately and it blows up.
Yeah.
Just like...
From the jump, I'm like, this is not a good plan.
Right. Yeah. Because that's the plan. The plan is we don't really know where they are. We have a basic location. We're going to go up this mountain. And because there was an avalanche that forced them into this crevasse where they're trapped, we're going to have to blow it. But I guess we don't have traditional explosives, so we know someone in the Pakistani military, and he's got a hookup, and he's going to take us to the tea drinking guy, and he's going to give us nitroglycerin,
or he's going to turn the other way while we take some.
Right.
The avalanche, by the way, which has the world's worst B-roll to show it.
It's pretty bad.
I swear there are, you watch old, really, really old film that is degraded, and there's these little, nicks, and, it's got that in it.
Yeah, the quality
this is so old.
The quality of the film is not quite, the B-roll is not quite the quality of the motion picture stock that they're using or whatever.
I swear it was from the opening of a nature film strip that I saw in 4th grade.
Oh,
it is just, and
it's extremely, I don't want to say Ed Woodish, but it is very much tight shot of the actors, camera shaking, some guy off screen throwing fake snow at them, long shot of an epic avalanche happening,
of two tiny figures trying to outrun the snow.
Right, slightly lower quality, and a couple superimposed, stick men trying to outrun the snow. It's just and the whole thing. I mean, we're not really going in any particular order here on this, but the whole movie is there is someone who in the early part of the planning stage of the rescue mission, when Peter is putting forth the idea of a rescue mission, people are like, well, no, it's too dangerous. People are going to die. So there's 3 survivors on the mountain, and they send 6 people to go get them, and 3 people come back. Right?
Yes. Because,
So you literally lost 6 people to save.
You saved one of them.
Right. You lost 4 of your team to save one of the 3.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just, the numbers on that just don't work out for me.
Well, and at the beginning, so the calculus that they're making at the beginning when they're hanging on the mountain with their father is sacrifice 1 to save 2.
Exactly.
And then Wick says something. Is it Wick? Somebody says something oh yeah, no, we're going to save these 3 that are trapped in the cave versus going after these 2 from the rescue team that we didn't. There's something where the concept of sacrifice 1 to save 2 is comes up again.
When the guy slides down the mountain and and then there's an explosion, and so they have this completely unexplained idea that they'll take 3 different routes. This team of 6 will split into 3 teams of 2, and they'll take these different routes.
I think the idea is if one of those routes is bad, then at least the other 2 are
right. I'm assuming they don't really. I didn't feel like this was explicitly told to me, but if you go 3 different, if you split your team into 3, one of them might make it. Yeah. And one of them might make it first, even though he says all 3 of these ways are about the same time. Yeah. No one of them's faster. Yeah. So one of the teams, the fate of one of the teams is in question. And Wick is that's 2 people. We're trying to save 3. Hey, let's go.
Yeah. These 2 are question marks. Your sister is not. Let's go get your sister.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting for Hollywood movies tend to, sometimes they over explain everything and you're like, I get it. I really, really get it. And sometimes they don't explain anything. And this, I feel leans toward not explaining much and just letting you figure it out, which is not what you would expect for sort of a popcorn flick. Yeah. The guy who's supposed to be the leader of the team, Tom, falls into this crevasse and is clearly in worse shape than the other 2. Yeah. And I at one point I was like, he's got internal injuries, right? Because this is not altitude sickness like the other 2 have. This is really bad. And they don't say that for another 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that was a show don't tell thing. It was made very clear visually. Yeah. She falls and she's on a rope. Yeah. So she gets caught right before she impacts at the bottom of the crevasse. And we say crevasse.
We do. It's a family joke.
It's 100% a family joke. Yeah. So she gets caught by the rope. They're all tethered together, and she gets caught, so she doesn't have a big impact. Then she is explicitly shown catching Vaughn. Yeah. And then Vaughn is attached to Tom, and Tom comes down with nobody to catch him
and falls on rocks.
Falls right on the rocks.
Yeah.
And then as soon as, you see Annie and Vaughn sort of running for cover, and Tom doesn't move, and all the crap just collapses in on him as well.
Oh, I didn't get that.
So not only
part.
does he free fall to the bottom,
so he's got damage coming from both directions. Yeah. Oh, I didn't get that. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I 100% could see how you wouldn't catch it, but that was one of those rare instances of show don't tell, and they showed.
Well, sure, but that's what I'm saying is I would expect this type of movie to be very clear, like.
Right. Too bad.
I can't move. I have some internal injuries. Yeah, no.
In a modern movie, there would be a scene with the two characters in the foreground, and he's in soft focus in the back, and one of them says to the other, "Look, he's got internal injuries here. Right. He's got a punctured lung. Yeah. Like, he's not going to make it long."
Well, it does later.
But, later. But I'm saying right away. Yeah. Someone would be like, there'd be a scene where they feel around on it and go, and he goes, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, no, it's nothing. It's
nothing. You're fine. You're fine.
Oh, yeah,
you're
he's gonna die in 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, so it is clear that Tom is not going to make it.
Yes.
And where Annie and Vaughn have this thing going back and forth because they have this drug,
super drug
called Dexa something. What is it? I don't know. I looked it up. It's a type of steroid.
Sure.
And it decreases cerebral swelling is what it says.
Because apparently, we're past the vertical limit.
Yeah.
So just breathing at that limit for too long eventually just makes your body drown itself in its own fluids or something.
Yeah. And somehow a shot of this, which everyone seems to give the shot to themselves in their forearms.
Yes.
Which I would be like, I choose death. I don't ever want to give myself a shot. But if I do, it's going to be in my thigh.
Yeah.
Or my butt.
Tom gets
or
it in the thigh.
Something. Yeah. A shot in my forearm. No, thank you, sir. Yeah. I will pass. That's the only reason I'm not a mountain climber, really, is the shots.
It is.
It's the only
you purchased $10,000 worth of gear and were ready to go to climb Everest, and they were like, "Oh, but just in case anything happens, there's going to be the shot."
Yes.
And you were like, "Nope.
Hard pass. Yeah, I still have it all sitting in the garage.
I was going to say, you're taking this all back to the dicks.
To the big dicks. Sorry. More family jokes.
Yes. Yeah. Like the Dex is, it's a super drug, and it's important for the plot twist, for the thing, for the reveal. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody, I guess this is just every smart climber has a set of X number of syringes.
You'd have it, right. You'd have it because it can save your life.
Yes. And but if you run out, then eventually, the oxygen is too thin and the air is too thin and you can't breathe well. And as it's described later, the skin is scraped off your throat and your lungs fill up with fluid and you drown in your own body. Like, that does not sound pleasant at all. So Dex helps stave that off. And I looked it up and I found a lot of conversations about Dex in the climber community, including this great piece on something called rockandIce.com. It says, the people in this film spend more time fighting and killing each other over their supplies of Dex than they do actually climbing. The whole movie is like if you staged a heroin den at 24,000 feet, which just cracks me up. This person also describes this as one of the best climbing movies of all time, which...
Sure.
How many climbing movies are there? I guess, was it a short list? I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think this is one of those movies where it's just like, because Cliffhanger is that's just an action movie.
Yeah.
It's just a reason to.
Yeah. After the first scene, there's not much.
Cliffhanger is a
stuff.
climbing movie in the same way that Heroes was a show about superheroes.
Oh, don't get started.
Yeah.
Don't start.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it probably is one of those where you're like, man, it's not perfect, but it's kind of all we got. Isn't there one called? Isn't there K2, K3? Some there's another movie, The Widowmaker or something.
Well, it's kind of like I think The Paper is one of the best journalism movies. There's not that many,
exactly. So, you just don't have many to choose from.
Yeah, and I appreciate one that shows my people in a good light. So
right,
we'll take it.
In comparison to Cliffhanger, this is the best climbing movie I've ever seen. Yeah, most realistic climbing movie.
Although this guy was ravaged in the comments. They were bringing up involving, aluminum water bottles and all this other.
He only used 3.
Yeah.
Look, see that rope? That nylon's not gonna.
But anyway, so they have X number of Dex shots, and they're being very purposeful about this. We have to keep drinking water, which I don't know how that keeps your lungs in good shape. But sure.
It's whatever. Like
so there's limited amount of fuel cells to melt snow, and I didn't understand this for a while. I was like, why can't you just eat the snow? But apparently, it uses more energy for your body to melt the snow than to So we have X number of Dex shots, and there's this fight over whether to give the Dex to Tom, who's clearly not going to make it, but give him this chance and see, or withhold it from him and save it for the other two.
Right. And this is when you first start to see sort of the cracks in Vaughn's character, where he is just basically like immediately, he's not going to make it. And even if they come and rescue us, they can't get him down off the mountain. So really, like, we should just smother him with a pillow, and we should just keep the supplies for ourselves. Like, at this point, we're pouring water down a toilet bowl.
Pretty much.
Because it's not even going to help us at all.
Up till this point, the only person who's really disliked Vaughn is Montgomery Wick.
And we only saw that as like him questioning when he was like, hey, who's going to be in charge up there? Yeah. What happens when it all goes bad and the weather turns? Like what's going to happen? Laying our little foreshadowing.
And it seems like Vaughn is cocky, but maybe he's earned the right to be cocky. Who knows? But then when they're all stuck in the cave, we're like, oh yeah. And it gradually becomes clear. So Wick's wife was, and it looked like she was a native Pakistani, or she was from the area. Anyway, that doesn't matter. She was a guide, and she had guided Vaughn's group the last time 4 years ago that they tried to summit. And there was a big storm, and Vaughn was the only survivor. And this is presented as, oh, he's such a badass, he's such a good climber, blah, blah, blah. But he says, oh, everyone's decks got swept away and nobody survived except me.
Or was it? Yeah, that was another thing where I was a little bit confused, because they talk about Wick going up the mountain to save his wife and dragging 3 guys down.
Oh,
so I don't know that Vaughn was the only survivor.
Okay, that's true.
Right, but the Dex shots are stored in cases of 3, and 3 people survived. One of them was not Wick's wife.
Right, and Wick says at one point later, as soon as he started giving interviews, I knew he was lying, because he said the Dex was swept away, and she always kept her Dex with her, like, inside her shirt or something like that. So he knows basically that Vaughn is responsible somehow for his wife's death.
Wick also refuses to come on the rescue mission until he hears that Vaughn is trapped. That and Vaughn is amongst the survivors.
And it was kind of, I think a cheaper movie would have done sort of the dramatic chipmunk, like, Vaughn, you say? Vaughn, let me get my gear. I'll be right there. And it's, but like, it's clear that that's the thing that gets him to go. And at some point, Peter confronts Wick with this information. It's like, you're going to kill him, aren't you? And he's like, my wife's dead because of him? Yeah, I'm going to kill him. Like,
I was like, yeah. And, and Wick says, like, you try and stop me. Like, you can barely breathe. You can barely stand.
Yeah.
And you get this sort of, without saying it, it's another, I guess it's kind of a show don't tell. Wick has been climbing this mountain over and over again for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So he's at home.
At least.
He's acclimated to the whole thin air. And so he doesn't struggle throughout the entire thing. And I think that's one thing they do a good job of showing. Every other character is constantly wheezing in this thin air, except for Wick. He never does.
One thing I noticed is, so Vaughn gets in like the evening of the first day, and then he's leaving on this trek 12 hours later. That is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're going to Denver, you need to acclimate yourself for a couple days.
Yeah.
You're going to base camp at K2, which is probably 2 or 3 miles high. I don't know. Like, that's dumb.
Yeah, I feel like.
But that's
the subtitle of this episode is it's a popcorn movie. Don't overthink it.
Right.
But we do for an hour. because that's all we've been doing
Right,
the whole time is just, hey, this is a popcorn movie. But man, wouldn't you get there like a couple days early to acclimate yourself?
At least a couple of weeks, really. Well, I think, that's what we do. We've said from the beginning, we talk about a lot of things, and I find xenophobia and toxic masculinity in everything because it is actually everywhere.
That's true. And if we're gonna be guilty of anything, it's overanalyzing a movie that doesn't really have the depth.
Yes. But I don't know. I maintain though that, everything is there. You just have to see it.
Oh yeah.
And we see it. But anyway, so I forget what threads we've dropped. I'm sure we've dropped several. Annie figures out Vaughn kills Tom.
Yeah. After Vaughn is finally succumbing to he's finally takes his Dex.
He takes a shot of Dex and he uses the empty syringe to inject air into Tom's bloodstream. And Tom is not stupid. Tom knows. Vaughn wakes him up. Why would you wake him up? Just, and Tom says, "Are you going to kill me now?" And Vaughn says, "Yes." Just stabs
on him.
And smothers him too. Yeah. So poor Tom. Yeah. And then he leaves the syringe right there.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm done with this murder weapon.
Trying to
yeah. Also, I love during this whole thing, there's this whole subplot. So they introduced the idea of the limited Dex just so that they can set up this backpack that's just out of reach over this precipice and have a little scene where Annie goes and gets it and is in a lot of danger or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's just so many of the things in this movie are just like, we created a problem so that we can, granted, like that's screenwriting, like that's fiction writing, that's anything. Like, you make problems that you can solve, but it's so there are 3 of them. So you would think at the very least, each of them would have 3 shots on them.
Or maybe were there, well, that's another, because it's not clear how many people were on this mission to begin with, because there's supposed to be a documentary crew.
Yeah,
with Annie.
There's 8 or 10.
Yeah. So did somebody else have most of the stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, but because the pack that they find is the pack from
his wife?
No, I think it's Julian Bashir's cousin or whatever.
Oh,
that character. So there's one there's his character Kareem, I think is his name. That whole Kareem's whole reason for going is because even though they only know there's 3 people alive and one of them isn't his cousin or whatever, he goes, because maybe. He said,
"You say there are 3.
Yeah.
Maybe there are more."
There's a picture. There's a point where she opens up a book and there's a picture in it, and it looked like the 2 of them.
Okay, I think
so.
Right.
Yeah, so it's right. So he for some reason had some, but she, So I don't. It's whatever. Again, here we go.
This is kind of, keep your life-saving supplies on your person.
Yes. Everyone should have, like, just because there's 3 in a package, like, everyone should have some.
Yeah. This is sort of like, keep a change of clothes in your carry-on bag when you fly, because you might be separated from your checked bag.
Right.
And you don't realize how important it is until it happens to you.
Yes.
Also, keep contact solution, because I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah, let's wrap up the plot here.
Yeah, basically we get to the nitroglycerin takes the 2 Australian brothers and Kareem. Monique, we haven't talked about Monique. Monique is there. She survives.
Yeah,
she's
Monique's
the love
entire
interest.
character is she's French Canadian. Sometimes she's French. Sometimes she's Canadian.
Yeah, I feel like that only is funny if you know Canadians or French people. I don't know.
And she becomes a love interest.
Yeah, like in the last 5 minutes of the movie.
And also, as you pointed out, has some very late 90s eyebrows.
Oh my gosh, they're so thin. Jeez.
Yeah. That was like right at the peak of how thin can you go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And there's a close up of her eye at one point when she's freaking out about something, and like they are super well plucked. Like that is dedication to personal grooming, that you pluck your eyebrows that much when you are living in
even in base camp.
Yes, I'm sure deodorant is hard to come by, but you can tweeze your eyebrows. So good for her.
Bench brother number 1 is he's the guy who slides down and falls off and hangs from an ice axe for 20 minutes before finally falling and getting blown up simultaneously.
Well, no, he didn't. He survived that, but then he was up on the ice shelf, and then the avalanche caused by the explosion.
Right. Yeah.
So
but he does fall off the edge and get blown up, and the whole deal.
And then the other brother and Kareem are the other pair, and they there's this panic. They realize the nitroglycerin has to go in the shade, and so they get it, but it leaks, and there's the trail.
Yes,
that goes into they show it very slowly, and it crosses the line of the shadow into the sun, and then immediately, and the two of them are blown up. And I hadn't noticed this before on previous watchings, but there's a blood explosion.
Oh yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of gnarly stuff.
Yeah, there's like a dislocated finger.
Oh, yeah.
And Wick doesn't have any toes.
Yeah,
there's a scene where you can see him.
For not a very gross movie, there's a lot of gross out moments in this.
Oh yeah,
Not too much, but just enough that you're gonna watch through your fingers for parts of it.
Yeah, and so you've got
so we've disposed of three of our rescuers. So we have Monique and Peter and Wick, and they all find each other, and now we got to climb the rest of the way. And there's a lot of they're like faking staggering against the wind.
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to the actors, but there was a lot where I was like, you are on a soundstage.
Oh yeah.
This is, but it's the wind and it's the altitude, and they can't breathe very well, and all these things.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Vaughn has killed Tom, and Annie realizes it because she finds the syringe that he left there, and she is furious and would like to attack Vaughn, but she can't because she's sick. And somehow they just turn to, okay, we're gonna use his blood to make a flare.
They're initially trying to get the ink out of pens.
Oh, I missed that.
But the pens are frozen or something.
Okay,
they're trying to mix the ink in the pens with water from the snow. Like there's a brief shot, like there's a cut to like a pot with snow in it and some pens stuck in it.
I totally did. I missed that.
He's
I
like,
saw the
get
pot,
the ink or something. And she's like, it's frozen. It's not melting.
Okay.
So.
And then
so he's like, okay, well, what else could we get that people can notice? Because they're making a contraption that they can push up through the ice sheet or whatever.
Yeah. What did they use to push it? It looked like they had a big pole. I didn't know what that was.
Maybe tent poles. It was hard to those collapsible tent poles.
Yeah.
But it's who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they make this great blood explosion to mark their spot, because again,
a lot of blood. They drained that guy.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because again, the rescue team doesn't know where they are.
They know roughly.
They know kind of like their rough last position. So that's one of the things that early on that said, like, even if you get up there, you're never going to find them.
Yeah. Well, they do that. They do this. And Peter, resourceful little Boy Scout that he is, has brought a Sharpie and some notepaper and a whistle, I guess, and drops something down the blood hole that just says bang.
Bang.
Which, sure, I guess that's enough.
That's fun.
Sure.
Peter's a joker.
Yeah. And they crouch behind a thing, and they use the nitroglycerin, and miraculously this one has not blown up by now, so they have to pour it out,
the one that made it
into a little snow thing, and it has a fuse, and it's
they use like a flare or something to set it off. I can't remember what I don't
know. So now here we are, and Wick has gone on his own thing. I don't remember why. He's not there.
So no, the two, Monique and Peter, left before. They didn't wake Wick up because there's a point where Annie basically calls Peter on the CB on the radio and is like, this is it. Like, just turn around now. I'm dead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it. You're 5 hours away.
Yeah.
I don't think I have more than 2 hours to live.
Yeah. She has a change of heart about, sacrificing yourself to try to save other people.
Right. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to make it. And Monique overhears this on her radio, and presumably they both head off in the night, I guess, to go ahead and summit. And because Wick wakes up the next day,
I did notice that, but I didn't
by himself at the camp.
Those together. Okay, so he's
just behind them.
He's traveling by another route.
X amount of time.
So Peter and Monique are trying to get Annie out, and there's all this, cams and stakes and things that you think are secure in the ice, and they're not, and they come.
They're never secure.
They're never secure. Yeah, which is why I would never climb. Like, are you kidding me? But and it's about to give, and all of them are going to fall, and Wick comes and steps on the thing and puts it back in. And so they're trying to get Annie out, and she's in the worst shape. And so they've got her in like a sling type thing. And Wick is below her and Vaughn is below him. And it becomes clear we have the same problem as at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So the
rope is not going to hold all of them.
Just to clarify, Wick shows up, saves the stake, then rappels down into the crevasse and has his moment with Vaughn, where Vaughn knows what's going to happen. Like he knows he's coming after him. He's got his little axe, his little ice axe, and takes a swing at Wick, but Wick just pushes it aside because, of course, Vaughn is weak.
Yeah.
And holds him over the edge like he's going to drop him, then pulls him back and hooks himself to him. Like, okay, like this is not how I honor my wife's memory by murdering you. So I'm gonna.
Or is this all part of the plan?
No,
I don't know.
No, it's not. It's not all part of the plan.
I don't know.
It's definitely not all part of the plan because there's no way that he could have orchestrated this level of a plan to happen.
But I think something about I'm going to make you dependent on me.
Maybe,
but anyway,
maybe you could stretch that. Sure. I don't buy that, but maybe you could stretch that. So so he hooks. You've got a chain built of people hooked together down in the crevasse. Vaughn is hooked to Wick. Wick is hooked to Annie. Annie is hooked to the rope that goes up, and they start pulling.
Peter and Monique are pulling. All three of them up.
They're not pulling all three of them up. They're just pulling Annie up, and Vaughn is at the bottom supervising. Annie's foot gets stuck, and Vaughn is trying to like wiggle the ropes and like get it free. They're all tethered together, but they're not pulling all three of them up.
Okay.
They're only pulling Annie up. The thing that her foot is stuck on breaks free, the ice cap or whatever breaks free and collapses the whole shelf that they're standing on. And now they're all three dangling, Annie at the top, Wick, and then Vaughn at the bottom. And, everything's starting to come loose again. And
it becomes clear.
Yeah. Peter and Monique definitely can't hold all three of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And earlier Wick had said to Peter, your father was a good climber. He did what any good climber would do.
Yeah.
You have nothing to, because Peter was the one who actually had to cut his father free. Right. And that's why there's a lot of guilt. And Wick says, you did the right thing. He would have done the same thing in your position, blah, 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 blah. So when it becomes clear that the rope's not going to hold all of them, there's this eye contact, meaningful eye contact between Wick and Peter. And Wick has a knife and takes it out and, says this little prayer. And Vaughn realizes Vaughn's at the bottom going, no. What are you doing? Wick is ready to meet his maker. Vaughn is very much not.
Yes.
And Wick's like, too bad, sucker. I got the knife, and cuts, and they go, and they're dead. And then boom, now everyone's back at base camp.
Right.
We're just going to hand wave the difficulty of getting everybody down.
No idea how they got this at death's door lady back down the mountain.
Yeah.
But she's great. She's good. She lives. They all live. Nobody loses any toes, I guess. And
and just my favorite part. Peter comes to the medical tent. Monique is actually a nurse, and so she's now in her nurse mode, and she's caring for Annie. And Peter says, "How is she?" And Monique says, "She's wonderful. What a will to live." And I was like, I don't think that's what he meant.
Right.
He meant like,
what's her condition?
Yeah, like
give me the actual.
I don't, and then
she got a broken wrist and a blood.
And then they kiss.
Of course,
and there's the romance, because you can't possibly have a man and woman in a movie without there being some romance. And Peter and Annie have some sort of reconciliation type thing. And then the last shot of the movie is we see there's a monument where it's got these little placards of all the people who've died on Everest.
Yeah.
And they've added Kareem and his cousin and the Bench brothers and Montgomery Wick, but not Vaughn, because he's a bad guy.
That's right.
Oh, they added Tom and all the people, the good people, the people who didn't deserve their deaths.
None of the film crew or any of the other.
Yeah.
Just forget about those people.
But not Vaughn.
Yeah, definitely not.
And that is Vertical Limit.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's a lot going on. Again, a popcorn movie. Don't think about it, but you just sat through us overthinking it.
But we did. But I don't know. I kind of enjoy movies like this because I'm never going to learn anything about mountain climbing in my own life. That is something I never would do.
Sure.
Because I truly don't understand. Like, because you always see people rappelling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, rappelling down is fine.
Yeah, easy enough.
But rappelling up, who put the rope up there?
Right.
Who was up there to do it? I don't. And if you just like
somebody?
toss the rope up there, how do you trust it? And I don't trust these cams. And like, no.
Yeah.
I like the idea of climbing as a workout, and hiking, sure, totally fine.
It's great.
But just defying gravity, no.
Yeah, no, thank you.
No. So this is as close as I will get to learning anything about actual, really difficult mountain climbing.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Well,
the more I learn about anything outdoorsy, I think, nope. I am meant to stay inside and read books and watch movies about other people who did outdoorsy things, and I don't want to do any of this at all. I will take a walk in the park. And
live vicariously through others.
Yes. So
man, yeah.
So
is there anything left to say about Vertical Limit?
I feel like we've got it all, except for there is one thing. I'm looking over my notes, and I can't find the exact quote, but Roger Ebert's review of this, the late great Roger Ebert, started out with an observation that we think they don't make B movies anymore. They do. They just give them A movie budgets for special effects, and that's this. And I was like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, yeah, and especially the 5 years leading up to 2000. There was a lot of that, like your face-offs and Con Airs and pick a Michael Bay movie. Like they're just the 70s dumb low budget action movies given a huge budget.
Yeah,
and just set out there to blow things up and have crazy fights and just
a lot of well, and apparently this did pretty well at the box office. I think critics did not love it. Like if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, it's like a 48%, which is not the worst but not the best either,
average.
And I don't think any viewer thinks this is a great movie, but it's popcorn.
It's fun. I mean, it's a fun movie. Like it's a fun movie. It's a little bit convoluted in places, and it is, there's a lot going on for what it is. Like there's a much more straightforward, simpler version of this movie.
Yes.
And maybe it is that version that is a sequel to Cliffhanger, so that you can kind of like, okay, well, we can throw out these 3 pages because people already know this character. They already know this, what we're doing here. Like I
really want to see that script now. I want to see what this would have been as a Cliffhanger sequel.
Totally, yeah. Like I bet it was. Yeah, I bet it was great.
Fun. I actually saw a lot of Cliffhanger recently because that was also on cable on a Saturday afternoon. And you know who's in that? Who we have talked about on this podcast? John Lithgow.
Oh yeah.
As a truly evil guy.
Yes.
Very different from his Harry and the Hendersons character.
Yes. That was during the time of the duel. The duel. Where he would play a family guy, family man, and then the Third Rock, and like he would go back and forth, like
92, 93.
Yeah,
I saw that with 93. That was one of the my dad takes my brother and me to the movies to get us out of our grandmother's hair set. That was Lithgow.
He could just turn it on and off. You want crazy or you want father, like father figure.
He seems like he would have been a good Die Hard villain. Was he ever in Die Hard?
Not that I know of, although I couldn't tell you anything about the villains after the third one.
Okay. But he's got that, Rickman, Jeremy Irons flavor.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
But
anyway. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could definitely put him in.
Anyway, so that's Vertical Limit. So,
man,
one of the questions that we were asking each other early on was, does this tell you anything about me that I like this movie? I feel like no.
No. Not other than like this is the most un-Marian movie that you've done so far. This one is much more likely to have been on my list, though I had not seen it.
Yeah. And I would not say that this is like a formative film or like one of my favorites ever, but it's just, it does fit into that, I must do this physical feat. I must conquer this thing to know myself better.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
anyway.
This is not. I'm not learning interesting things about your personality.
Which is fine. I think I would be a little shocked if you did.
Yes.
Yeah. So, But hey, listen, folks, we would love to know what you think about Vertical Limit. Was it a formative movie for you? Are you a climber? And you can tell us your favorite, least favorite inaccuracy in this movie. Tell us what you think. You can drop us a line. We're at both Twitter and Gmail, and our handle for each of them is YSMY Podcast for You Show Me Yours podcast. So drop us an email or tweet at us. And also you can follow our Twitter account. We post links to new episodes. We have new episodes every other week, every other Wednesday.
Yes. And hey, if we ever had anybody to post for, maybe we would post more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much just a way to get reminded that we actually posted an episode.
Pretty much, yeah. But you can also subscribe to us on most of your favorite podcast platforms. I know we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and probably a lot of other ones as well. So please subscribe. And if you would like to rate or review, we'd love that too.
Mm-hmm.
Only if you're going to say nice things, though. I take criticism very personally.
This is true.
Yeah, no, be nice. Be constructive. If you're going to be mean, email it to us.
Yes.
And then
please.
he'll read it and he won't tell me about it.
She'll never know.
No. But anyway, we'd love to hear from you. And let's see, 2 weeks. What are we doing next time, Dave?
Oh, I left it up as a game time decision. I've got three lined up. Any one of these three. Let me see. Let's do They Live.
Okay. I don't know. Is that a zombie thing?
No.
Okay.
It is actually. So this might be a good segue into a series of movies that I can do over the next few times it's my turn.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because previously on this podcast, I have spoken about how I'm going to show you some movies that may seem like dumb action movies, but actually have a message and have something to say underneath them.
Everything. There's a message in everything.
No, right. No, but of course. But I mean, like when I say RoboCop is really about, corporations and corruption and police. Yeah. They Live 100%. Yeah. It's not zombies. It's aliens, kind of, maybe, sort of.
Okay.
You'll see, but it's John Carpenter at arguably his best.
Okay.
And Roddy Piper. This is definitely my favorite. My favorite Hot Rod role. And Keith David, being Keith David.
Okay.
In a John Carpenter movie, like he does. It's
okay.
I am very interested. This is very 1980s. Reagan era.
Okay. I know nothing about any of the elements that you just described. So this is going to be eye opening.
It'll be a fun one to talk about for sure.
Okay. Well, tune in next time to hear us talk about They Live. And in the meantime, thanks for listening. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.